So today I have a very interesting little brand to show you guys. This is called Charlie Paris. They are a French brand. They hand assemble their watches in France. This is an automatic dive watch. It's a Swiss automatic and it is a 300-meter dive watch, and it is very good looking. I'll get right into it. And the brand itself has a little bit of a story behind it. This specific model does, which is kind of cool. So it comes in a outer sleeve. That is a paper outer sleeve. Inner box is just like a canvas hardened cardboard box. It has leatherette on the inside. It's also signed on the inside as well as the outside. You get a warranty card, just a paper warranty card, and then a little booklet with information on the watch and the brand, which is nice. And that's really it. So pretty simple packaging. But the brand, and specifically this watch, has a little bit of a story. So this specific watch, the Concordia, was worn by Matthew Tortor. Now, Matthew Tortor was, or is, a person who actually went on the coast of the Antarctic all the way down to the South Pole, and he did it alone. He skied all the way down on his own, alone, without any assistance. And of course, he had a watch on, and this was the watch. So a little bit of a story there. He's sort of an explorer. He was one of the youngest explorers, or the youngest explorer to ever do it. Also, he was the first Frenchman to do it. This specific colorway has yet another sort of little story tied to it as well. If you are not familiar with the coast of Portugal, there is an area called Nazare. It is known for the largest waves on Earth, I believe Earth, or it could be just in Europe. They are very, very big. You see videos for these waves, and it is insane. And there is a gentleman by the name of Thomas Traversa. He actually is a windsurfer, a professional windsurfer, and he wore this watch while surfing those waves. So this specific colorway is a limited edition dedicated to Nazare off the coast of Portugal. Pretty cool. So there's two associations with sort of explorers or adventurers, which is nice. A lot of people like that when it is tied into a watch. And it has pretty good specs. As I mentioned, this is a 300-meter dive watch. You get a blue sort of silvery fume dial. It has a little bit of a texture to it. It's sort of a sand texture, and I'll move it around. I'll do close-ups of it so you can see. You get applied indices, and then you get fence post hands. They are all filled with loom. We will do a loom shot at the end. You have a date there at the 6 o'clock, sort of replacing the indice at 6 o'clock. And it looks good because it is not color matched, so it matches the rest of the indices. You get an aluminum bezel insert, which sort of matches the case itself, and I think it looks pretty good. And then you have sort of a conical shaped crown with a little bit of blue in it that matches the dial. You get a stainless steel case, a stainless steel bracelet. It's sort of an oyster style bracelet. It is all brushed except for the sides. There is a pin and collar system for changing the links. It does taper. I believe it tapers down from 20 millimeters down to around 18 millimeters, I want to say, but it might be even smaller than that because it looks like it does taper pretty good. Actually 16 millimeters. So you can see the taper is actually really nice on here. I do like a taper, and this does taper well. And the case is stainless steel. You have brushing on the top. You have a thin line of polish along the edge of the case. And then on the back of the case, you get sort of a mixture of finishes on the back of the case. It is a screwed-in case back. As I mentioned, 300 meters of water resistance. You get a little map of that area in Portugal on the back, sort of dedicated to that. This is a limited edition of 100 pieces, and it looks really nice and finished very nice as well. The case is actually, I believe, around a 40 millimeter case. I've measured it a few times, but there you go, 40.1 millimeters. It gets an STP 111 inside. So this gets a Swiss automatic movement. It is made by the Fossil Group. If you guys are familiar, the STP 111 is based on an ETA movement. It is sort of an ETA clone. And the lug to lug on here is 47.8. You do have female end links. It doesn't go straight down, so it's 48.4 on here. It's just a little bit bigger. than the actual lug to lug on the lugs itself. On a strap, this will wear true to that. You have a nice crown on here. It is sizable. It's 6.6, and then it goes down to just about 6.3. So there's a little bit of a taper on that crown, and it is signed, as you can see. The bracelet is very thick also. If you see that, it's a very thick and chunky bracelet on here. The buckle is sort of a generic buckle from a micro brand. You do have 4 positions of micro adjust. It does work very well. However, it's nothing too spectacular, as you can see. I wish they put something a little bit nicer on here. You know, considering also the price, I think it definitely would deserve something with maybe a little bit of micro adjust, on the fly micro adjust, which I always like to see. Thickness on here, I'm sorry, I think I skipped over that. Thickness on here is 12.3 millimeters. That's including the domed sapphire crystal. It's a thick sapphire crystal as well, because it's a 300-meter dive watch. So very, very nice. Now, pricing on this, I think it starts around $800 USD, and that is on a strap. It's a little bit more if you want it on a bracelet. I probably would opt for the bracelet. I always opt for the bracelet, and even though the buckle isn't fantastic, the bracelet is very nice, and it's finished very nice. Very chunky, very heavy bracelet. You do get the STP 111 in here, as I mentioned. The dial just has the Charlie Paris logo there. It says Paris right under the word Charlie. And then it says Concordia, and then right below that it says automatic, and then 300 atmospheres, 300 meters of water resistance, just below the Concordia, just above that 6 o'clock indice. And that's really it. That's all that's on the dial. A very chunky little watch at 40 millimeters. Even though it is 40 millimeters, it does feel very substantial in the hands. It's also ISO certified 0764, I believe, because it does have a Faraday cage, so it is anti-magnetic as well. You get super luminova. We'll do a loom shot just so you guys can see. I believe the loom is actually decent on this watch, but I'm going to throw it on my wrist so you guys can see very quickly. Today I actually have on my Omega Seamaster 300. I actually wore this because the bezels are very similar. As you can see, obviously a different color, but a very thin bezel on this watch. You sort of have a little bit of a metal ring that goes around the center. Not as thick as the Omega, but you could definitely see some of that inspiration in this watch, which is definitely not a bad thing in my opinion. I love the Omega, and I really do think this is a charming little watch, and it's hand assembled in France, which definitely adds to the price of a watch. And it is definitely on the more expensive side. $800 is definitely on the more expensive side for a watch with an STP 111. But I think it's in the wheelhouse of what these watches would cost. And, you know, the bezel action is pretty good on here as well. Let's listen to that. Everything lines up. I think it looks pretty good. I think it sounds pretty good as well. Feels good. Very, very nice bezel action on here. I really like the bezel. The color of the bezel is just slightly different from the case. Gives it a little bit of a contrast, and it matches with the sort of white in the indices. I think it does work very, very well. Yeah, so there you go. On my 7.5 inch wrist, is a 40 millimeter watch. Wears pretty well, and it's I think 12 millimeters thick, a little over 12 millimeters thick. Pretty nice. So very quickly, I'm going to do a loom shot, and then we will wrap up the video. So the loom, pretty decent on here. A little bit less loom on the hands than the indices I've noticed, so it's a little bit lighter on the hands than it is on the indices. However, decently applied, liberally applied, I would say, on the indices, and applied okay on the hand. So really not that bad, and it does hang on pretty well. As you can see, it's hanging on pretty well. So the only complaints I have about this watch would be about the buckle. I wish there was a little bit of an upgraded buckle on here considering the price. Maybe get it on the strap if you don't want to spend the extra money on the bracelet. I usually recommend always getting the bracelet, but you know, considering that the buckle isn't that great, maybe you want to get it on the bracelet, on the strap, excuse me. And then, of course, there's the STP 111. I don't mind that movement. I think it's a great movement. However, again, at this price point, $800, I would have preferred to see a Sellita movement. I think it's a beautiful watch. I think it's really well made. And they actually, you know, have a little bit of a story behind them. They're not just, you know, another micro brand. They have a little bit of a story behind the watch. The watches have actually been worn by explorers and adventurers, which is pretty cool. And it's also hand assembled in France. So all of that is sort of intangible and adds to the price. That all depends on if you care about that sort of thing. So I would have liked to see, like I said, at least a Sellita movement. I would always like to see an ETA movement. But the STP 111 is a great movement. And at that $800 price point, it is a little bit high. But, you know, considering the intangible, it's really kind of subjective. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Tell me what you guys think of this watch. Do you think it's good looking? I think it's really good looking. I think it's a very good looking watch. I really love the fume dial on here. It's very subtle. It's sort of silvery and blue and white, and has a little bit of texturing to it. And I like the combination that they did with the bezel itself, that aluminum insert that's sort of painted a grayish sort of silvery tone. Looks very good. And like I said, the bracelet is really nicely made. It's just, it should have an upgraded buckle on it. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. Please follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is WatchChrisBlog, all one word. I have some links in the description. Those links are to Amazon. If you click those links and buy anything, it helps support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything extra. However, I very much appreciate it. Anyway, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.